He is a New York Times best-selling author with books that can really only be described as chick lit at its best. And now Sophie Kinsella is out with her long-awaited new novel, following the adventures of her character Becky Bloomwood in mini Shopaholic. And Sophie joins us live this morning to tell us more about the latest installment of the Shopaholic series. Sophie, first of all, I have to tell you, I was reading through mini Shopaholic, and I see Rebecca Bloomwood as Isla Fisher now. I totally picture her. Do you feel like the movie and the character have kind of blended in that way for you, or is she someone different in your mind?
It's funny. I think a lot of people now see Becky Bloomwood as Isla. For me, because I started writing her so many years ago, before I even dreamed that she would be on the screen, I still have my Becky in my head, who is a British Becky and who I've never described in the books because I wanted to kind of keep her out of that. So, but I mean, I thought Isla was great. So it's like I have two versions. It's marvelous.
Now, this book has been so, spectacularly popular, especially with the film adaptation and that sort of thing. I mean, could you see this when you were penning this the first novel?
Of course, I had no idea. It was absolutely surreal. I thought I was writing a little story about a girl in London in debt that might appeal to other girls in London in debt, possibly. That's as far as I thought. I had no idea that it would end up a movie, that it would, appeal to people all over the world. I mean, that's what's really blown me away, is that there are Becky Bloomwoods everywhere. They're here in the States, they're in Japan, they're in Latvia. Honestly, I get messages from people everywhere saying, I am Becky Bloomwood. It's amazing.
Now, what's really neat is for true fashionistas, that doesn't end when you get married and you have a baby. And so for mini Shopaholic, Becky is kind of continuing in her ways, and now she has a major shopping problem with a mini Shopaholic, right?
She does, she does. It's bringing a whole new set of challenges to Becky because she's shopping now with a toddler, which in itself, it can be hairy, and the toddler with very set views on what she would like to buy. So they're a bit of a double act. Plus, she's trying to fight the recession in all kinds of ways. She's planning a party, she's house hunting, she's got a lot on her plate.
Now, one other thing I wanted to ask you is, it's funny because on the cover of this book it says your name, Sophie Kinsella, but under your first novel, you actually wrote under your real name, Madeline Wickham. So what was the desire to do that?
Well, it's funny. I started writing under my real name, and I wrote a few books. Then I had the idea for Shopaholic, and I knew at once it was going to be different. It was going to be pure comedy, and it was going to be first person, and it just felt like a fresh start. So I chose a new name. I chose my middle name and my mother's maiden name, and, it seemed to ring well, Sophie Kinsella. I had no idea it would become so big. I honestly didn't. So now I find myself sort of answering to Sophie and being Sophie, and that kind of wasn't necessarily the intention, but it's great.
That is so funny. Sophie, thank you. Or Sophie or Madeline or whatever you want to be called. We appreciate you joining us this morning, and I, for one, can't wait to read this book, Mini Shopaholic. You can find it on newsstands now. Patrick?